Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast with Eric Thompson.
Inspire, perform, profit.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's your good friend Eric. This is the Leading Edge Podcast. This is episode number 21, entitled 50 by 50. I will tell you what the heck that means. So let's start with the question. Do you ever have those moments where someone says something to you, someone shares an idea, and you think that possibly that is the greatest idea you have ever heard in your life? Does that ever happen to you? We're like, oh my gosh, how did you come up with that? That is genius. That is brilliant. So here's the thing. That very instance, that very thing happened to me last November, so about 6 months ago. So here's the thing. I am recording this podcast on my 49th birthday. So I'm recording this podcast on May 27th, 2019. So about 6 months ago, my wife, Julie, had an amazing idea. So I had one of those moments where she said something and I thought, oh my gosh, that is possibly the most genius thing I've ever heard in my whole entire life. So the thing is, last November, we were talking about the fact that I am approaching the big 50. So I'm approaching 50 years old. I'm not there yet. I'm 49 today, got another year to go, but I'm approaching 50 years old. So she and I were talking about that last November, and she was even starting to brainstorm some fun birthday ideas and birthday party extravaganza kind of brainstorms that she was having. And then she said something to me, which was the genius thing. And pretty much everything she says is genius, but here was the genius thing. She said, hey, Eric, why don't you make your 50 by 50 list? And I knew what she was talking about. I knew what she meant, and my jaw hit the floor. And inside my head, I thought, oh my gosh, that is the most brilliant thing I have ever heard in my life. And of course, what she meant was, Eric, why don't you make your bucket list or your big to-do list? Some people call it a Goddard's list. Why don't you make your list of 50 things that you want to do by the time you turn 50 years old? And I just thought that was absolutely genius. So you know what I did? I said, that is a genius idea, and I went to work. So I spent the last couple months of 2018 making my list. So it took me about 45 days to put this list together. And I've made lists like this before. I even teach people how to make these lists, and I was taught how to make these lists in Ninja Selling. And I kind of followed the instructions that I had been given. I followed the instructions that I give to other people, which it's helpful to put these things into 4 categories. So you want to put them in the categories of to do, to be, to give, and to have. To do, to be, to give, to have. And so I worked on my list using those 4 categories. And I will tell you a couple of things. One, I will tell you, it's harder than you think. All right, it's harder than you think to come up with 50 things. And that's why it took me so long, because I wanted to really take this seriously. I wanted to have some really compelling items on the list. I wanted to be really excited about it. And I had to find this balance of things that were exciting and compelling and that pushed me out of my comfort zone, and also that were within the realm of possibility. And research shows that that's the best way to set any goal. It has to feel like a stretch, and it also has to feel attainable. It has to feel within the realm of possibility. So it can't feel like 100% slam dunk, because that's hard to get excited about, and it also can't feel like trying to launch a rocket ship to Mars, even though you've never even launched a little model rocket ship out of your backyard, right? So it's got to feel somewhat attainable. It has to feel somewhat realistic. So I had to find this balance of all those things. So that's part of the reason why it took me so long. And so it took me 45 days between like around the middle of November up until the end of the year. And I will tell you that as things have gone on, as I've started to check some things off the list, what I'll tell you is that at least half the fun was making the list. Oh my gosh, making the list was so much fun. To just get my creative brain going, to think in possibility, to imagine the things I could do, And also it was a chance to kind of conjure up all the things I had thought about doing at some point in my life. An example is about 10 years ago, I read about this bike ride in southwestern Colorado. It's called the Death Ride. I read about this bike ride in a book that I bought about 10 years ago. And ever since I read about this ride, it has been on my mind I wonder if someday I could do that ride. Gosh, I wonder if I could ever have it in me to do that ride. And for 10 years, that loop has been running in my brain. And so one of the first things that popped to mind when Julie had this idea, why don't you make your 50 by 50 list, was, well, you know what? It's time to get that bike ride on my list. And I'm actually going to do that ride in about 2 weeks from today. I'm going to do that ride. It's 225 miles in one day, up and down lots of big mountain passes. It's a massive, massive, massive endeavor. I've been training for months to get ready for this, and it's all because Julie spurred me on. So there was a lot of things like that, things I had thought about doing that finally had the chance to make it onto a list. A funny story, so I was kind of stuck on 49 things, and I really wanted to finish the list by the end of the year. I just wanted the list done, and so I could start to get after things and start to check things off the list by the time January 1st rolled around. So I was stuck on 49 things. We're in Aspen. We were lucky enough to spend the week of New Year's in Aspen. We were skiing with the family, and I grabbed the local newspaper, and I noticed in the newspaper a small little article, a small little announcement that said, hey, if you would like to ski in the New Year's Eve Torchlight Parade, this is what you need to do. We're welcoming all guests, all residents of Aspen to ski in the Torchlight Parade on New Year's Eve, and if you want to do that, call this phone number. So I showed it to Julie, and I said, hey, do you want to do this? She said, oh my gosh, we should absolutely do that. For those of you that don't know what a Torchlight Parade is, it happens in the evening time, and skiers go down a ski run holding torches, and the lights from the torches, kind of make this really neat design, kind of a back and forth, kind of a big S snake pattern, right, going down the ski run. It was an amazing experience, and so I guess I kind of cheated a bit wherein that became number 50 on the list. So skiing a Torchlight Parade became the 50th thing, but you know what? I got the list done by the end of the year, and I even got one of the things checked off when January 1st rolled around. So since I made the list, I just counted just now before I made this podcast, I have 7 things done. All right, so 7 things are done, including the Torchlight Parade. And you may be doing the math in your head like, geez, Eric, you're going to have to crank up the pace there to get 43 more done over the course of a year. You've done 7 in 5 months. You got to pick up the pace. Yes, I do. I get that. But a lot of the things are teed up and ready to have happen. And I'll tell you about these 7 things, maybe other than the Torchlight Parade. These are all things I would not have done otherwise. So it's been one of the beauties of making this list. These are all things that I would not have done otherwise. So a simple example is going to ski in Jackson, Wyoming. So Julie and I are big skiers. I've always wanted to ski in Jackson, Wyoming. We had the opportunity to go, or actually, you know what, a better way to say it is I created the opportunity for us to go this last February, carved out a weekend, arranged childcare for my kids. My mom watched our kids so that we could go up to Jackson for the weekend. We drove up there and just had this amazing time. We would not have done that unless ski in Jackson with Julie was on my list. Another one that made my list, something that I wouldn't have done otherwise, was to take my youngest daughter, Greta, to the hospital where she was born. So every time I drive by that hospital, and especially when I'm with her, I always, I'll make a fun comment like, "Hey, Greta, that's where we picked you up. That's where you were born." And literally every time I drive by that hospital, I think, gosh, wouldn't it be cool to take Greta inside to show her where she was born? So we finally did that. We did that a couple months ago. Took her inside, took her up to where kids are born, and saw that floor. And she was asking all kinds of questions, and it was just an amazing experience for her, an amazing experience for us. Lots of great memories came back for Julie and I. And now Greta has that grounded inside of her. She knows exactly where she was born. And now when she drives by that hospital, she can have the image of what it looks like inside and the exact place where she was born. So that's an example of something that I would not have done. I wouldn't have got that done otherwise without making this list, all right? So people of course, they get curious to know, so what's on the list? All right. So I'll give you some ideas of things that are on the list. And oftentimes people, when I start telling people about it, people will assume that they're all physical related things, that they're all these big physical endeavors. There are some of those. I mentioned this big bike ride in southwestern Colorado. That is one. Another one I have on the list is to run a marathon with Julie. I've never run a marathon in my life. Big into athletics and outdoors, but I've never run a marathon. So run a marathon with Julie is on my list. Another one that's on my list is to run the Boulder in a certain amount of time. So the Boulder is a 10K race. No surprise, it's in Boulder, Colorado. I've done it several times, but there's a specific time goal that I want to hit. I want to do it under 45 minutes. So that made my list. So yes, there are some physical related things, but they're not all physical related things. I also have some family related things on the list. So one thing I put down is that I want to show my kids the childhood home of my parents. So I want to just show them, probably not inside, but at least drive by the outside of the homes where my parents grew up. I think that's important. I'll give them some sense of where they came from, what it was like for my parents growing up. So that's one thing I want to have happen. Show my kids my parents' childhood home. Another one that's on my list is to play 9 holes of golf with my dad. So my dad is an avid golfer, and I'm not. I haven't played golf in, I think like 11 years. I think is how long it's been. Just stopped playing because I'm really bad, and I didn't like to go out on the golf course and really stink it up and not be competitive, right? I didn't like that. But you know what? I want to go play 9 holes with my dad. So playing 9 holes of golf with my dad is on the list. Another thing that's on my list related to parents is going on a bike ride with my mom. So she loves to ride her bike. She's not riding her bike as much anymore, but going on a little bike ride with my mom is also on the list. Another thing on my list is going to skiing with my stepbrother. It's something that he and I did when we were growing up. We would ski together all the time, and he and I have not skied together in years and years and years, so I want to ski with my stepbrother. There are, no surprise, some business-related things on my list. So I have things related to growth in my company and specific targets that I want to hit. There are specific income goals that I have on my list. And another one that's on my list, kind of fun, maybe someone listening can help me with this. One thing on my list is I want to speak in front of 2,000 people. I just set that as a goal. I was thinking, wow, that would be neat to speak live in front of 2,000 people. The largest audience I've spoken in front of so far in my career was about 850 people. And I've always wanted to hit that 1,000 mark. And I thought, well, even better, how about I get to 2,000? So I want to speak in front of 2,000 people. I have some, no surprise, vacation-related items on the list. But you know what? Maybe not as extravagant as people would think. One thing that's on the list is I want to go see the Grand Canyon. I've never seen the Grand Canyon before. I want to go to the Grand Canyon. Another one on my list is to take the girls to the Rockettes. So Julie has always wanted to take the girls to see the Rockettes. So we have take the girls to see the Rockettes on our list. I think we're going to make that happen this coming November. There are also some things that you would probably never, ever, ever guess in a bajillion years. I'll give you one example of this. Part of the reason I'm sharing this is that I'm thinking there's someone out there that can maybe help me with this one. Something you would never guess is I want to learn how to drive a semi-truck. Would you ever have guessed that? I don't know what it is. I think ever since I've been a kid, I've just been kind of taken by semi-trucks. I just think it'd be kind of cool to know how to do that, to know how to drive one. And, I wouldn't need to do any more than like drive it around a parking lot. It doesn't necessarily even need to have a trailer hooked up to it, but I want to learn how to drive a semi-truck. What I want is when I'm out on the highway and I see a semi-truck, I want to say to myself, yeah, you know what? I know how to drive one of those. I just think that would be really cool. I think that's probably like the little boy in me coming out. I want to learn how to drive a semi-truck. So if you know someone who can hook me up with someone who can show me how to drive a semi-truck, a quick little lesson on how to drive a truck, help me out. Hook me up with someone who can help me learn how to drive a truck. One more I'll share with you, and I'm saying this kind of as a public proclamation or declaration. I'm saying this out loud in public because this is something I really want to get done. The declaration is I'm going to write my next book, the No Drama Zone book. So you guys all know I'm big into this theme, the No Drama Zone. I even have the little No Drama Zone logo trademarked. And the next thing I want to do is write the No Drama Zone book. So it's going to be 56 rules for a drama-free life, and it's going to have the logo that I created, the No Drama Zone, on the cover of the book. So I want to get the No Drama Zone book written. So you know what? I got 1 year to do it. Please hold me accountable to get that done. I want to get the No Drama Zone book done. So what I'm hoping is happening for you right now, what I'm hoping is that you are getting inspired to do something like this. And I will tell you that not only a lot of the fun has been the creation of the list itself, also a lot of the fun has been telling people about the list. It's been so amazing to tell people about this list, because one thing I've watched happen, and I know it's happened, is that people have made their own list, regardless of their age. So I've watched 40 by 40, or maybe 60 by 60, or 45 by 45. I've watched people be inspired by this and go make their own list. So I'm hoping that you are getting the same idea. I'm hoping you too are going to go make your own list. And I'll tell you one more thing. Even better than telling people about the list is telling people who are on the list, right? There are people who are on this list who I want to go do something with. So for example, I'm a big college football fan, and my dad is a huge college football fan. And so I spend lots of time growing up, he and I watching college football games together. So one thing on my list is I want to go see the Army-Navy game with my dad. So the Army-Navy game is known as one of the most storied, most exciting, most meaningful college football games that's out there, and that's something I want to go do with my dad. So what I'm hoping is happening for you right now. I'm hoping that you are being inspired to go make your own list, and I'm hoping that you create some things that involve other people. What I'm hoping is that you share those things with the other people, because you're going to watch other people get excited about your list too. All right, so there you go. So that is the 50 by 50 list. Get inspired. I hope you get out there and make your own list. Thank you so much, as always, for engaging with this podcast. If you want to get more things like this, so if you want to be inspired, if you want to get some things done that are on your list, if you want some coaching on how to do that, how to reach big, big goals, what you got to do next, you need to join The Leading Edge. So go to jointheleadingedge.com. That's where you can see all about it, and you can become part of the inner circle to get even more content, even more help like this, even more hands-on coaching from me. I'm happy to help you. So go to Join the Leading Edge. In the meantime, have an awesome day. We'll see you soon.